people often used to say to me, "Oh, how come you've got all the good stuff?" And I'd say, "Well, we're all fishing in the same ocean. It's like, what? Why do you think my staff are much better than your staff? Has to do with conditions."
Today on Dirty Linen, we are talking to Mario Di Pasquale, one of the founders of Mario's Cafe in Fitzroy. Mario's opened 35 years ago, and it's not long after the 35th anniversary of this iconic Melbourne cafe that one of the two Marios that owns it retired. It's taken him a few months to be talked into speaking about this milestone. But Mario, welcome to Dirty Linen. I am absolutely thrilled to have you on the show.
Thanks, Dani. It's nice to talk to you.
So I don't know if we should start at the end or begin at the beginning, but let's leap into your life as it is now. Tell us about the end of your time at Mario's. What took you to that point?
Oh, well, the other Mario and I had been talking about an exit strategy for a few years. We're 9 years apart in age, so it was always going to be difficult when we got to this age. I'm 68 now, so, and he's still 59. So he wanted to keep going, and I'd had enough. Not had enough is not a way to talk about it. It's really, I was physically over it, and at 68, it's kind of time to pack up. So a few years ago, we had planned that on the 1st of July 2020 that I would retire. And, of course, in March that year, we went into our first lockdown and, we worked through that for another year and a bit. And then I retired on the 1st of July this year, and Mario has taken it over.
Wow. So did it just feel like you couldn't leave the business when it was so imperiled by the tricky times that we've all been through?
Yeah, it just didn't seem right to do it at that time. And in retrospect, it was the right thing to do because, years ago, we sat around planning Mario's and planned Mario's, and then we planned the Continental, which was also a big part of our lives for 10 years. And this was an opportunity to, again, work together and plan our way through the pandemic closes. So it was really great to be there that extra year, even though I suffered sort of physically. I've got a bad knee and all that sort of stuff. I think it's 35 years on the terrazzo floor that has kind of wrecked them.
And how has it felt to be out the other side?
Well, what happened was I retired on the 1st of July, which was a Thursday, and we spent Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday in Melbourne. And then we've got a place on the Great Ocean Road, and we came down here, and then 2 days later we went into lockdown. So I spent 4 months down here in lockdown, which was kind of good in a way because it sort of separated me from that city life and, wanting to go down the cafe and have a coffee every day because I live basically just around the corner when I'm in Melbourne. So the separation time was great to be away. It was just, freezing and cold and windy all the time. So there was not much you could really do.
So it's kind of...
There's not much you could really do anywhere, really.
No, well, that's true. But it's sort of like it blew Fitzroy out of your brain a little bit. Like you didn't have to have the pull of the cafe and the social life there to keep drawing you back in.
That's right. And it allowed me to, I can't explain it, but it allowed me to separate myself from what I'd been doing for 35 years. In fact, it forced me to rather than allowed me to, which, 5 months down the track, I think was a great thing.
Really interesting. I mean, I've long admired the way that you and Mario Maccarone ran the business? Like you crossed over one day a week, and each of you was there three days. Actually, I've probably this isn't seeming to add up to 7, but anyway, it's basically you crossed over a little bit, but you were there was always one of you there.
There was always a Mario there.
Yeah, there was always a Mario there, and it was such a it's such a special cafe. It's certainly been important to me at various stages of my life, and I know it's one of those cafes that, you know, even people who spend 15 years away from Australia and away from Melbourne, you know, that's where they come back to. I just can't. It's hard to imagine Marios with the singular Mario. I mean, how does that sort of strike you?
Well, I think, you know, Mario's will be exactly the same. Like, there'll be no changes. It'll just be more work for Mario. But the majority of the customers won't even know that I'm gone, I don't think. I mean, you know, there'll be a whole lot that do, but things just won't change. It'll just go on, going on. Really, there'll be no changes, and I don't think that it will be different in any way. For me, the only difference was, you know, I heard Mario on the radio with Virginia Trioli one day talking about the reopening, at the last reopening. And that sort of made me feel a bit weird. It was sort of like, wow, that used to be me, you know, and now it's not. So it's going to take a while to come to terms with that not being part of Mario's anymore, not being part of the decision-making process, not being part of the menu-making process, not being part of any of it, really. Although in lockdown, I still made some jams and stuff and took them down there. So my jams are still available. I'm still doing that.
There's still a taste of you there. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, there'll always be a taste of me there.
Yeah, look, of course there will be, because, you know, it's such an incredible heritage. And one of the very special things about Mario's is that many of the staff have been there almost as long as both of you. You know, it's just incredible to think you've got waiters that have been there more than 30 years. It's an incredible testament to the way that you've looked after your people. On this podcast, you know, we speak to people who've you know, often we speak to people, they've got a lot of fire in the belly, you know, they've got all these plans stretching out ahead of them. They're fighting their way through the difficulties of hospitality, you know, of course, never more so than in these past couple of years. But I just would love to get your perspective on the industry from where you stand, you know, out the other side. I mean, how do you reflect on our Australian hospitality industry?
Well, certainly since I got my first job in hospitality in 1975, it's come a long, long way. And I think the most important part of that was in the 80s when the Kane government commissioned the Neuenhauser report into liquor licensing. And very soon after, I think it must have been 87 or 88 maybe, all the liquor licensing rules changed, which allowed more freedom. So we were lucky enough to open in 86. So a year later, you know, things were very open as far as licensing went, and as far as people, you know, having a go and setting up and having ideas, which was exactly what we did. You know, we worked together at Sindos Bistro in the city with Raymond Sindos, which was, you know, near the Exhibition Street corner there. So we spent a lot of time in Pellegrini's, and, you know, we loved being there and we loved what it stood for. And we decided that we wanted to have our own place that, you know, was down market yet up market at the same time. So by down market, we sort of meant being at the lower price end to attract those sort of people that can't afford to, you know, have big expensive dinners, but also at the same time have well-dressed waiters, have tablecloths, have all that sort of thing that you would get in a nice restaurant. So it kind of proved to work quite well. And from the really early days, because we had no breakfast, lunch and dinner as such, we just had continuous service. And right up until maybe 5 years ago, we used to do breakfast, or, our catch cry was breakfast all day, every day. So we did breakfast from 7 a.m. till 11 p.m., which, I really pushed for years and years with Mario to stop. And finally, about 5 years ago, I think when McDonald's started advertising breakfast all day, every day, I said to Mario, it's time to stop. It's time to stop doing it into the night, because it became a bit of a problem for the cooks, because you'd be set up for nighttime service and you'd have an order for poached eggs and bacon or something. So you'd have to, get pans out and do all that sort of stuff. So we cut it off at 5 o'clock. So we still did breakfast all day till 5 o'clock, but it just wasn't available at night anymore. And it led to a much smoother running of the kitchen at night.
Well, it is interesting, this whole idea of giving people what they want, because, as you talk about, you did, like some musician who was asleep all day could get up and have their breakfast at 8 p.m. if that's what suited their life. And, off they went to the gig after that. But there was also there was also some ways in which Mario's just wouldn't cater to people. So for example, you couldn't order your coffee, a almond frappuccino with, extra, whatever sweetener. I don't know what. Like there were some things that you weren't flexible on. Right. Yeah. So, how do you balance that sort of giving people what they want, but also drawing some lines and saying, no, this is not who we are. This doesn't feel right to us.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of an interesting question. I guess that you have to make those, or we had to make those decisions as to, what we thought was important as far as being accessible to the public, and especially the public that were coming to us in those early days, which was really very arts-based, that stuff about musicians, artists, performers, all that sort of people that led irregular hours were immediately attracted to us because of the hours we were keeping and because of the way that, they could get whatever they want, whenever they wanted. Well, not whatever, what we had to offer. And, it's kind of a tiny place. And the setup just didn't allow for us to have, 4 jugs of milk and 2 grinders, one for decaf and one for non-decaf and one for, single origin espressos and stuff. So we had to keep the coffee thing to very, black or white, really, which was sort of like our first wine list. Our first wine list was, red or white. Make your choice. Which one do you want? And the coffee was like that as well. It was black or white. It was full cream. We just didn't have the space. But as the years went on, we really had to have a non-dairy alternative. And so we started to use soy.
Okay. I suppose that what I'm trying to get to is something around identity and around that balance between, giving anyone who comes through the door an experience that they might be looking for, but also staying true to what you're able to offer, what makes sense to you. And I think, this sort of, going through all these lockdowns and, people having a great difficulty finding staff and, all the difficulties that people are facing at the moment. I think a lot of people are asking themselves, well, how do we differentiate ourselves? What is our core? What is it that we want to present to the world? And perhaps, we do see a lot of businesses not trying so hard to be everything to everybody. I just wonder, how you would reflect on that from coming from a point of view of, a business owner that always seems to have had a really strong through line. It always felt like Mario's.
Well, I think that anybody opening a business is going to have a business plan and going to want to know what they want to achieve in the way of the aesthetics of the business, what it offers and its profitability. So it's really all in the business plan, and then all the personal stuff comes into play. So you make decisions on you make fiscal decisions, obviously, but you also make decisions on what you want your place to be, to look like, and how you want people to perceive it. And that's what you offer. And I think that, we've been pretty true to that over the years. We've just, it's Mario's and this is what it is, and people either love it or hate it. And that's the way it is. So I really can't add much more to that. I think it's personality based, and what you want out of your business that leads you to the decisions that you make as to when you're open, what you're offering, all that sort of stuff. I mean, Mario and I, for years and years and years, we're at loggerheads. When I say loggerheads, I mean we always had discussions about how long we're open. Like we opened full staffed at really down times, and I for years wanted to cut it back. So if you looked at it fiscally, Mario's would have worked best if it was open from 4 o'clock in the afternoon till 10 o'clock at night. But the other Mario's thing was, if you want to go to Mario's, you should never have to think about whether it's open or not. We should just be always open. There should be no time restrictions, no day restrictions, no public holiday restrictions. So consequently, really for the first 25 years of our business lives, we were opened every day except Christmas Day.
Did it get harder over the decades to make money with the business model that you had crafted?
Did it become harder? Well, yes, it did. But, we were true to that sort of thing about it being open all the time so people could come whenever they wanted to. It was interesting, after I finished, I've been talking to Mario, not constantly, but we speak quite often over the phone. And the first 2 weeks of the lockdown, this last lockdown, he just closed down. And then he said, I think I'm going to have to open. And so he decided to open, like Mario's was open, I think it was 4 o'clock till 8 o'clock, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? And what he did there was pick out the peak times when people would use the takeaway service. And it was quite successful.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. I think last time I had a discussion with you, I was talking about how it would be good to cut back hours. And you were quite surprised because, everybody's trying to extend hours to make more money. But if you look at it the other way, like you say, all the savings that you could make in downtime, because I reckon we probably went 5 or 6 hours out of the 16 hours a day that we were open that was non-profitable. There was a scattering of people in there drinking coffee at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or at 10 o'clock in the morning, or those downtimes where it's not busy. maybe we need to go back. Like when I first started working in hospitality, we worked split shifts. Do you remember that?
Of course, yeah.
So you'd work from 12 till 3 and go and have 3 hours off and come back and work 6 till, close. It was horrendous. And when we started, because we'd done quite a bit of that in our early hospitality days, both Mario and I, we decided that this was not going to happen. We weren't going to put people through that torture. So that was how we originally decided to open, for 17 hours a day, because we'd do 3 floor shifts, like 3 different shifts, and then we'd do 2 kitchen shifts. So, the floor shift we're working 5.5, 6 hour days, which is kind of, especially in those early days when, we had queues out the front and all that sort of stuff. It's really hard to keep your concentration up for longer than that sort of period. And then the kitchen staff were working 8-hour days.
I mean, it's so fascinating, and I think this is really sort of it's one of the nubs of the problem of hospitality being viable for the people that work in it and viable as a business. And I suppose also to create that feeling of community lounge room that cafes often try to do. It's, your staff, I'm sure a large part of the fact that your staff have stayed with you, many of them for decades, is because they're not working split shifts. They've got those, good chunks, they know when they're starting, they know when they're finishing. So there's that side of it.
And, some of them have been doing the same shifts for years and years and years. And you've got to give people, people often used to say to me, oh, how come you've got all the good staff? And I'd say, well, we're all fishing in the same ocean. It's like, why do you think my staff are much better than your staff? Has to do with conditions. And, especially other Mario just like bends for people like far more than I ever would. And that's why we've had great sort of, students that have worked for us right through their degrees, because they come to he did the front of house rosters. They would come to him whenever they got their rosters for school and give it to him, and he would work around it to make sure that they could keep working and would be fresh enough to be A, at school, and B, more importantly, to be working on the floor. So it's about, conditions really that keep staff together. And, we've been able to keep, as you said, the majority of our front of house staff, just been there's for so long, and right across the board, I think we've had more than 10 long service leaves.
Which is extraordinary for a cafe.
Yeah. And some of them have been multiples.
Yeah, right.
Two of them have been multiple long service leaves.
Yeah, that is extraordinary. I mean,
it is amazing. It's an amazing achievement. It's, I think when I reflect on what we've done, I think the way that we have treated and been able to maintain staff has been incredible. It's the most successful part of the whole business, really, is having staff that have been around for so long. And it was also very relevant during lockdown as well, because, we had 28 people on staff, 9 that didn't qualify for JobKeeper. So the way that we worked it was that everybody that qualified for JobKeeper had to work 3 shifts, and the people that didn't qualify got to fill the rest. So we were able to keep the entire team together, and all those people that didn't qualify, that were, basically got chucked on the rubbish heap by the federal government, even though they had been paying taxes, rented houses, paid for their education, did all that sort of stuff. Then we turn around and just dump them on the rubbish heap when the shit hits the fan. It was really, really, really bad. And I know that you did a lot of work on that level, and a whole lot of people that I know did a whole lot of work for people as well, keeping them fed and all that sort of stuff. Moroccan Soup Bar, they were just incredible. Jagdev Singh, who worked for us, who runs the wine place, which I forget now, they were doing, food packs for anybody in hospitality that wanted to go and pick one up. They were even delivering them and all that sort of stuff. So, everybody came together. I know everyone came together, but God, did we let those people down? I just can't believe how a federal government could, my biggest gripe was, why are priests getting JobKeeper? And why aren't students who are here contributing to the economy getting it? Why can a Prime Minister just say, oh, well, if you can't cope, you can just go home? My God, these kids are 20-year-old kids that have left home for the first time. Not only left home, they've come to a different country, a different culture. They have to adjust, and no one's looking after them. It's so bizarre. But anyway, we won't go on about that. I'm sure you could.
Oh, look, I mean, it's worth going on about it because it is so disgraceful. And, apart from the social justice and, simple humanity side of things, there is the way that those people were mistreated has got a lot to do with the fact that so many businesses are unable to staff up now. So it also hampers the economic recovery, and that was completely foreseeable.
Absolutely. And it took so long. I mean, those students were only allowed to work 20 hours. And after the first time that we opened up again after a lockdown, I remember talking to the Restaurant and Catering Association and going, you've got to get on to the federal government to allow these people to work more than 20 hours. It's ridiculous. They're only allowed to work 20 hours. We can't get people to work. I mean, it's ridiculous even at the best of times that they're only allowed to work 20 hours. It just opens things up for exploitation and all other. They can't live on 20 hours work. They just can't live on it. So then they have to go out and find cash jobs, get ripped off by horrible people, and just to keep the thing going. It's just like, I don't know how governments think sometimes. It's just, anyway.
So, Mario, you talked about the physical burden of working in hospitality, and it's significant. It's not it's a tough industry on the body. I mean, do you think there are ways of mitigating that, of changing that, or do you think it's just something that we need to accept that there's a lot of physical work, and it just is something that people can't do, perhaps as long as they would do a desk job for?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it is what it is. It's sort of like, the construction industry is a heavy industry. Hospitality, even though it seems like it's not, can be very taxing physically, especially if you're working in a kitchen. And even front of house people, they cover a lot of ground, and, they're constantly walking and working. I think it's up to employers to, we always kept our shifts as short as possible, which was great because you always had fresh people. And you could extend them when, things weren't going so well. So, if you've got someone doing 4 shifts a week and someone falls over for whatever reason, I don't mean fall over physically, I mean, get sick or whatever, you can stretch them out a bit. But if you've got them doing 5 12-hour shifts, it's a bit hard to stretch somebody from 60 hours, to 80 hours a week. It just doesn't work. So that's the way we always looked at it. And in our own working lives as well. I mean, Mario used to work Saturday days and I'd work Sunday days, but they were the only shifts that we were actually rostered on for. And, if there was emergencies, then you could do them. But if you were doing 5 shifts and running a business as well, you couldn't fill emergencies because you'd just be too exhausted. I mean, we did do lots of hours, especially through the continental years, being up till 3 o'clock in the morning, running a live entertainment venue and then fronting up again the next day. That was pretty taxing. And running 2 businesses at the same time, and both of them being, quite successful and, renowned for what they were doing. So, yeah, it's been an incredible journey, and I've definitely seen hospitality change a lot over the last 35 years. I mean, it basically started from nothing, really, in the 70s, to get to where we are today, and we still don't know where we are today. I mean, by today, I mean, pre-COVID. Things will definitely be different over the next 2 years as to the way people run their businesses.
What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think that, we'll go back to having a lot less hospitality venues for a couple of years until people get a bit of confidence and, young kids come up with ideas and want to try things and do stuff like that. I think that things will get more expensive to the consumer because especially staff costs are going to be so much higher. I don't know about you, but I've been hearing stories about all sorts of weird stories about extra money if you stay for a month and all that sort of stuff. So obviously staff are going to get more money from it, and so that'll have to, be passed on to the consumer. So I think that, it'll be more expensive to eat out into the future. I don't think that we'll see as many places open as often as what they are. I mean, we're already experiencing places that close on a couple of days a week because they don't have the staff to open.
I mean, do you think it's a bad thing that it is more of an employees market and staff are being paid more and then customers will have to pay more as well?
Half of it I'm happy about, the other half I'm not happy about. I'm not happy about consumers having to pay more to get what they were getting, 2 years ago. I'm happy for staff to be getting more. I think that, there'll be a whole lot of things like, I know a couple of places that have moved their operations because so many empty shops that you can really negotiate rents nowadays. Rents are going to be 30 to 40% cheaper than they were pre-COVID. I mean, I don't know if that's the case all over town, but it definitely is in Brunswick Street. There's people moving their businesses in Brunswick Street to go to cheaper rents. There's shops that have been, not rented for 2 or 3 years. And so we're never going to go back to that high rental that we'd looked at through the 2000s. Now, that could mean that, prices don't go up because there's a balance between paying extra for staff and paying less rent and that sort of stuff. But I think we're heading, towards more expensive dining out.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you're talking about higher staff, but wanting to keep a lid on menu prices, then you do have to find a bit of a magic pudding somewhere along the way. So maybe it is in rents. Maybe it's in shorter menus, maybe it's in different menu structures, maybe it's in shorter opening hours. But then, as you pointed out, it does have an impact on the way that staff can manage their lives and, their timetables. So it's such a complicated industry. It's so fast.
It's not that complicated, Dani. I mean, it's just like any other business. We just opened in different hours. So you've got to structure that differently to something that's open 9 to 5. Now, for years there's been this thing about penalty rates in hospitality, and it shouldn't be paid because, I don't know why. But why wouldn't you pay penalty rates on Saturday and Sunday? Even though times have changed, there's still days that, were traditionally family days, weekends, church days, take kids to sport, whatever you might want to do. Those days are days where if you work on those days, you should get paid more. I mean, we have in medical, nobody complains about nurses getting extra money on weekends. Why do they complain about hospitality workers getting more money on the weekends? And plus, their basic wage is so low that really I can't believe it. And people complaining about, holiday rates, public holiday rates. It's like, surely if you've opened a business, you've costed in 11 public holidays a year. Or if you haven't costed it in, you just close on those public holidays. But this stuff about, I went and bought a coffee on a public holiday the other day and I got charged 15%. Like, it was sort of like $9.37. And I said, what's $9.37? He goes, oh, that's the public holiday rate. And it's like, are you joking? You're charging me extra for my coffee because it's a public holiday?
Right. So you just think that should be like amortized over the year? It just should be built into the cost of running the business?
Absolutely. We always think. Why not charge 20 cents more for a coffee all year round? Like that sort of thing. Why are you charging me more today because it's Melbourne Cup Day? That's ridiculous. It's you haven't costed in 11 public holidays? Forever that there's 11 public holidays. It's not, they're not sprung on you like the grand final one was. I had a problem with that one.
Well, it's interesting because, some people complain about it because they think that they shouldn't be paying extra at any point. But you're saying, I really like the way you're thinking about it. It's just like, it's the reality of what things cost the business. So just smooth it out, and don't make it jarring for the customer. Just build it in. I think, there's a lot to be said for that.
I actually refuse to go to places that charge extra on public holidays. I just won't go. And if I've been caught out like I was the other day, I always say something about it because I don't like it at all.
Yeah. Well, most of the people like being grumpy about that stuff, you would draw the conclusion that they thought that people shouldn't be paid extra on public holidays. But of course, that's not what you're saying. You're saying reward the people who are working on those days that most people don't work, but don't make it jarring. Don't make it a lumpy customer experience. It's really, I love it. So Mario, I want to make sure you've had the opportunity to say everything that you want to say. So is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to get out there?
Well, no, not really. No, I mean, it's been great having the conversation and, thank you for, wanting to know what I'm doing in my retirement, I've basically spent a whole lot of time down here on the Great Ocean Road. We're near Aireys Inlet, and I've joined the community garden there, so I go down and do a bit of weeding. It's a really cool community garden that, you can go down and pick vegetables for dinner and stuff. It's really fantastic, and a nice crew of people. There's also another thing here called Grow Free. Do you know about Grow Free? Grow Free is, it's set up all over Australia. This one's in Aireys Inlet, and it's basically a stall behind a cafe where people take produce that they've grown and leave it for people to come and take, swap. We're not growing much, so I've been making jams and stuff and getting lots of vegetables, seedlings, all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of a community set up where people feed each other with stuff that they've grown. It's really fantastic. I really love that sort of stuff where you can get free food, basically. Yeah.
Well, and be part of a community. So it doesn't surprise me that you're still finding some rich community life after being, such a driver and part of that community around the cafe in Fitzroy. Well, Mario, I just want to personally thank you for everything that you've done over the years. Thank you for the Conti. I had so many great nights there, saw such good music, and allowed me to grow up a little bit and feel like, I could be part of a supper club vibe. I'm sure it made me 0.0001% more sophisticated. And thank you for all the important conversations that I've had at Mario's. I've solved the world's problems a million times in that room.
Yeah, so have I.
It's been such an important place for Melbourne and for Australian cafe culture in general. And just like massive shout out for the way that you put the staff at the front of the way that you ran that business. It's really a privilege to be looked after by somebody who knows that job so well, and you just feel like you're part of a good experience for them too. So, just a huge thank you.
Could I just say a few things as well?
Of course.
First of all, congratulations on your induction into the Hospitality Legends. I think that, that's really great, especially at such a young age to be inducted. We were inducted, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, and it's such a pity we can't get together for dinners, because I really miss those dinners with the Hospitality Legend dinners. Hopefully next year we can all get together.
An oversized Melbourne Food and Wine Festival Legends dinner would be really excellent. Thank you, and yeah, it's for me. It's a huge honour, and especially to be alongside people such as yourselves. People that I've written about and just admired for so long, to be placed in your company and the other Melbourne Food and Wine Festival Legends company is an enormous honour. So thank you.
And the other thing I want to acknowledge 2 people that are no longer with us that have been a huge influence in my life, and that's Mietta O'Donnell and Raymond Sindos.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Do you want to say a couple of words about each of those beautiful people?
Yeah, I just got a bit emotional then. That's why I stopped. But Raymond was, the most incredible front of house person that I'd ever met. And he just taught me, and Mario, in fact, because we both worked there, but especially me because I work longer, really everything I know about front of house. He was an amazing person. Mietta, the same. What can you say about Mietta? She was fantastic. I worked in Brunswick Street in the early days, like really early days before they went to the city. And Mario worked at the City restaurant. At the same time, I was working at Syndos. And the chef there, John Dench, who went on to do Dench Bakery, he worked for us for 11 years also. He was just an incredible influence in really both our lives. So yeah, there's been some incredible people that we've worked with over the years, and you know the great thing about Morris Tazzini worked for us in the early days before he started Cafe Cucina in Chapel Street. He worked for us, and we've got Sylvester working there at Mario's at the moment, who's Morris's son.
Oh, that's amazing. So he's come to Melbourne and he's doing the restaurant with Morris and Joe Vargetto in the City, in the old Massey space.
That's right, but he's working for us meantime until it opens up. So to see the generational, and that's not the only generational one, it's an important one to us, but there's, we've employed children of employees, which is kind of amazing to think we've been around that long.
Well, it's an incredible legacy that you're part of, and also that you leave in the Melbourne hospitality world. I know that you're not going anywhere too far, just down the Great Ocean Road for now. But thank you so much for chatting to me today. I've been at you for a few months, and I'm glad that it was finally the right time. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for even wanting to talk to me about it. So it's great. Good luck, Dani. Thank you.
Thanks, Mario. Take care. This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This